And welcome to Obidient Family TV. The program is Hope Alive. Yes, there is hope, and of course a new Nigeria is possible. We are here again to bring you a breaking news coming out from Ekiti State, the Ado Ekiti precisely, where the Federal High Court has granted Dele Farotimi bail on the sum of 50 million, and of course with conditions attached. And this very hour, we'll also be having discussion on some of the questions that were coming out throughout the weekend, have some of our viewers, and of course in our platforms, where questions are being asked by some people who are not educated on why the case of the magistrate is not even okay in the first place to be able to arraign him at the court and in the first instance. With me, of course, to have this very discussion this afternoon, I have Angel in the studio.
Welcome to the program Hope Alive. Sit tight, relax, let's discuss.
Yes, as we go on this very discussion right now, please do like, share, and of course subscribe if you're a new viewer. Thank you so much. Now it is very important we start with giving you this breaking news at this hour, which has to deal with what at least the first hurdle that has been passed so far in the Dele Farotimi's issue. And I believe that this Dele Farotimi's issue has been a thorn of the flesh for many Nigerians, and especially Obedience. So it is important for us to know that at least the first hurdle has been crossed. But several questions has been asked on why we keep saying that it's illegal to have abducted, kidnapped you and all of that. I want to state just like what Dinkalu wrote very clearly on the jurisdictional aspect, that even the magistrate court does not have a jurisdiction. This is important because the gist of the charges against Dele Farotimi before the magistrate in Ekiti is precisely criminal defamation, which is not a crime in Ekiti State as we speak right now. So why would you abduct him from there, charge him in a magistrate court when even the magistrate does not have jurisdiction at all for that case? Well, it seems quite clear that the charges presented by the police did not disclose a crime to the laws of Ekiti State, nor did they disclose a crime over which a magistrate in Ekiti State could purport to exercise lawful jurisdiction. Despite the evident absence of jurisdiction on multiple fronts, the magistrate proceeded with undue haste to order the remand of Dele Farotimi and, of course, in prison custody for 1 week until 10th of December, which is tomorrow. But there's something that they don't know about 10th of December, tomorrow. It is the International Human Rights Day. But of course, I think they would have gotten that across, as we note right now that they have already granted him bail. So the first hurdle, Angel, let me quickly, I was just responding to our viewers who obviously were asking a whole lot of questions why we keep saying that is that very crime does not even exist in Ekiti State. Now, having gotten that over, today, just happening right now, Dele Farotimi released on bail. What are your thoughts? I know this is the first hurdle that he has to go through. You bail him out, he comes out, and then the major fight starts. Do you think they will allow him to leave, notwithstanding that a bail has been given, one? And two, do you think that when he comes out, he will be able to actually probably stop the protest, because already Take It Back movement and so many Nigerians are geared towards tomorrow movement? Do you think that if he comes out today, there will be no protest tomorrow? You think that they may not be able to release him against tomorrow?
Yeah, the protest will go on if only they did not grant him the bail. If they did not allow him to go home today, that they granted him bail of 50 million. But if they allow him to go home, he will give a press conference. Yes, addressing the whole active citizens, the obedient, every good Nigerian that have been there for him, talking and talking and talking. So he will address them and say, calm down, I'm out now. will restructure. We know the next level to go. You understand? But if they keep him in custody again, then tomorrow off we go protest.
No going back.
No going back on the protest.
I see a lot of discussions on the social media, and of course even the mainstream media. I'll bring that up in a minute. But I see people discussing about a leaked U.S. Document which suggests that Afe Babalola is not as glorious
innocent
as he seemed, and seemed to be suggesting that Afe Babalola in 2004 had kind of gave cash 30 million naira to each of the justices, and this is not contained in this book that we are talking about anyway. But I think that is a leak that just came out that Afe Babalola is even not a cent, like some people who are defending him seem to be. 30 million given to uphold an election of, I think, one Governor Haruna of Adamawa State as 2004. So there's so many things coming out. But what I wanted to bring before I get to that very read is, when you are bending and you are looking at somebody like he's shouting about libel and defamation, when
she's outside,
it's open somehow. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's just for us, we Nigerians, to know that what Dele Farotimi wrote in his book is actually the truth. If a U.S. citizen can write so much about him, he's not innocent at all. Yes, he's not. Maybe he thought that the whole thing had been concealed. But you know what they say, truth always finds its way out.
Yes, truth finds its way out. Let's take that.
And what pains me is that they always built their wealth through criminality.
But Angel,
making hard-working Nigerians feels like a failure.
Yeah, but who in Nigeria controls billions that you really think that has not soiled their hands? A very few, very few. You can't be a billionaire that is not of.
But if Afe Babalola knew about this, why would he abduct Dele Farotimi?
I think he knows this even much more. This is one that Dele Farotimi did not foreclose in his book. There are several things that would have gone wrong. And I will tell you something, Angel. There's Buka Chua, if you recall, when he came out and he said his wife being the court of appeal did favors for his people.
Exactly.
You get my point?
Yes.
And I must also let you understand that right now the judiciary is working with the executive, meaning Tinubu is working with the judiciary and all of that, even the legislature.
Sorry to say, it's not even working. It's pocketed.
Okay. So the point I'm trying to make now is that they own them. So,
exactly.
So they may not even need to spend all those big money we're talking about. They are just told what to do and they will do what to do. The judiciary is supposed to be independent, but every Nigerian now know they are not independent. So even when we thought they were independent, they lied to us, they were not independent. Because if as of 2004, somebody like Afe Babalola could spend or collect 30 million to give to the justices, each of these justices, then it means that the rot is not from now. The rot has been there a long time ago. And it will take a very systemic reform to actually get along.
Exactly.
Let me get that turn of Afe Babalola and the U.S. Wikileaks, actually, that brought that very revelation. It's extracted from the U.S. government cable, which shows that Afe Babalola spent about $1.12 million on 5 judges who sat at the Court of Appeals in the early 2000s. That's 2004 to be precise. Afe Babalola, according to this very leaked U.S. government document, bribed a panel of 5 appellate judges led by Justice Pius Olayiwola Aderemi with 30 million naira each to restore Mr. Haruna to office after an election petition tribunal sacked him on grounds of electoral malpractice. According to classified U.S. intelligence published by global transparency group Wikileaks, this document from the U.S. cited that Afe Babalola, was the one that delivered these tens of millions of naira to the appellate justice to purchase their preferred ruling. Well, you can read that, of course, in many other of this. Now, they haven't said about this very particular thing. There was a discussion also, not just us, for those of you who are new to Obidient Family TV. We just don't bring you the news. We give you some of the details that were discussed, at least from mainstream media that you may trust, to show that these very discussions we have are really real, and it has been discussed also by the mainstream media. So it is no longer a fake news. And there is other news, of course, that is going around that will bring your way much later. But for now, let's take a listen and give credit to the Arise crew, who also had a very intense discussion on this WikiLeaks document on Dele and then Dele Farotimi's issue. Let's take a listen to them, and then we'll come back later.
This is from Atedo Peter's side. He wrote, I consider this article by Chidi Odinkalu to be compulsory reading for those who still wonder what all the fuss is about re Dele Farotimi being abducted in Lagos to appear before an Ekiti magistrate. Thousands of Nigerians are charged to court every day, and many of us do not get involved if they are not remanded in custody for a misdemeanor unnecessarily. We leave them to defend themselves before a court that we presume will give them a fair hearing. We only get excited when we fear that some rich man or man might be using their privileged position in society to get the police to go after a poorer person. Hashtag free Dele Farotimi. Well, Mood wrote, if truly the Ekiti State Criminal Law of 2021 no longer recognizes criminal libel or defamation, Dele Farotimi's arrest raises serious legal and constitutional concerns. Was his arrest based on outdated laws or misrepresentation of the current legal framework? Transparency and adherence to the rule of law are essential to maintain public trust in the justice system. Unfortunately, the ship of trust has since sailed. Well, Dele Farotimi's arrest continues to spark controversy over the powers of the judiciary. And in the time that we are in right now in Nigeria with the judiciary, Dele Farotimi's arrest, and that book. But what happened to this investigation, really, with Bukachiwa? And I also want to find out whether or not you read through that article by Chidi Odinkalu and those laws in Ekiti State that, Dele Farotimi is being charged for, whether or not they're appropriate.
Well, nothing came out of the Bukachiwa case. And I think, the husband also reversed himself, said, he didn't quite mean it that way.
That he didn't mean it?
Yeah, and the woman and the learned judge also, of course, denied that anything of such ever happened, having had a distinguished career on the bench. But let's deal with the article by Chidi Odinkalu, and so many other articles that have been written, and, generating interest. The matter is now of public interest. That's why you find everybody commenting. Well, Chidi Odinkalu has a PhD in law, so he knows what he's talking about. But the issues he has raised, let's just break them down very quickly. He's talking about jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is very important. It's the legal capacity of a court to take decision on any particular matter. And jurisdiction is properly defined. Magistrate courts, for example, cannot inquire into land matters, and so on and so forth. So he's saying that a magistrate court does not have the jurisdiction to inquire into federal cases. And he cites the example of, Justice Anyebe, a 1986 case, to prepare the grounds for this, a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court and was eventually the ruling of the Court of Appeal was reversed on the basis of jurisdiction.
Okay.
2, he says in the piece that Ekiti State has nothing like criminal defamation in its laws. The same case, as it were, with Lagos State and Edo State, Edo State also. And then number 3, he says that the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, to prove that indeed Chief Afe Babalola has been defamed in a criminal manner. Section 373 of the Criminal Code defines criminal defamation as something that can cause a breach of the peace. And that's why in one of the 16 charges, you see the police saying that, look, the defamation could result in a breach of the peace, because if you say the entire judiciary is corrupt, then of course people may rise against the judiciary. Now, this is Chidi Kanu's views. Other views have been expressed.
Yeah.
Take, for example, INESCN, yesterday, I think, responded to Chidi Kalu. That's why I'm just trying to cite another view so that people don't just say, oh, because this person has spoken, that is the opinion. If you keep 5 lawyers in a room, they will have different opinions, depending on the authority that they cite. Now, INESCN, for example, argues that Odikalu is wrong because he's talking about who took the case to the court. State courts cannot prosecute federal offenses. And he says in this particular case, the prosecutor is not the Attorney General of Ekiti State. It is the Inspector General of Police. So that's one argument from INESCN. 2, he says that the Anyebe case has been overtaken by events and has been whittled down in Tanko versus the state, which is a 2011 case. In other words, there's a later precedent that should be cited rather than the 1986 case. And he said, in fact, it is not true that state courts cannot try, federal offenses, depending on jurisdiction. Finally, he says that the statutory competence to prosecute federal offenses, reside also in the state court. So there are 2 different sides to the matter.
Okay.
But the matter is already before the court. If, it will probably go from the magistrate court to the high court. And the lawyers, Farotimi's lawyers, if jurisdiction is the issue, they can bring it up. And it's something, jurisdiction is something you can bring up at any point in the trial of a particular matter. And it will have effect if the court decides that there is a absence of a jurisdiction, because it means that that particular court does not have the legal capacity to try that particular matter. So we just leave it to the courts. What I fear about is the fact that, what I'm afraid of is that, in fact, the breach of peace, that the police are talking about may well happen. Because now, I think I saw a statement by Omoyele Sowore saying that tomorrow, I think tomorrow is December 10th, that that Afe Babalola's chambers in Lagos should be, picketed. Isn't that some kind of confusion?
Well, I mean, that's a legal protest.
2, the issue about justification, because that's the strongest defense in law, in defamation.
Yeah.
Some civil society groups, they've now gone to Wikileaks to go and bring out evidence that Wikileaks reported certain things about Chief Afe Babalola. Well, it's for the court to also determine whether that amounts to any evidence, and whether hearsay evidence is admissible in this particular matter. Okay. So let's leave it to the court.
We'll see how it goes. But was it only jurisdiction that Odinkalu put out there? I don't know if it was only jurisdiction. I think there was also the case of whether or not criminal defamation is a crime.
Yeah.
So besides jurisdiction, the fact that what he's being accused of is not...
no, he cited that. But also, what I want to talk about, Dr. Bati cited that. What I want to talk about is also the what's it called, the misstep in the procedure. Because now the police have now filed another case at the Federal High Court. I'm sure they probably had seen that they had had a misstep in the first procedure arresting Dele Farotimi. So many questions will suffice. Why was the Attorney General of the state not in this in the first place? If the police was trying to prosecute him, going to arrest him to be prosecuted in Ekiti State. And secondly, the fact that you took a man all the way from Lagos against his will to Ekiti State, prosecuted under a law that does not exist in Ekiti State. You know, because until Chidi Kalu's revelation, which kudos to him for, all of us on this table erroneously believe that criminal defamation is part of the law in Ekiti State. That was the lie that we're made to believe.
Yeah, that was the main.
Until
we had raised the Lagos one.
In fact, we had raised the Lagos one, but he said no, it is actually applicable in Ekiti. Until Chidi Kalu brought that revelation. And I did go back to study it. In fact, I saw all of it. It was only that section 70 that I talked about. I talked about public breach based on a publication.
And that's a 6-month jail.
In fact, it doesn't exist there. And the Dele team probably might bring that up because it's a very important point. Secondly, as regards the point Chidi also raised, that the burden of proof will be on those that are prosecuting. Yeah, the burden of proof will be on the police that came to arrest, as also prosecuting, to be able to go one step further, to prove that he actually defamed, Chief Afe Babalola. Going another step further is also the case of the human rights breach that is filed. Because I think that's even a double whammy now. Because now that we now know that Dele's right was not only violated, he was taken against his will for a law that does not exist in the state law. And the magistrates, and that's why the NJC too should also come into this.
Yeah, I believe
the magistrate just sat down and was quick not to give bail and left him in incarceration for a law that does not exist in the Ekiti state law. That's another part to it.
And
yes, I know because...
And he, even the magistrate court...
Not having jurisdiction and sitting on the matter and remanding him in custody. And now the police has finally said, okay, let's push it up. Because at first, it wasn't a case against the IGP. It was after 2 or 3 days, after they had remanded Dele based on a law that does not exist, that the police quickly go to the Federal High Court and they say it's about the IGP. And they are now charging him based on the federal law of cyber stalking and all of that, which is another double whammy. So there are many missteps and loopholes in all of this. Like I've heard the argument and the counter argument, by all parties and all of that. But most importantly, it will be incumbent on them to be able to prove that Chief Afe Babalola has been defamed. And also, Babalola Council granted a press conference in Ekiti where they were saying that Dele will have to prove. No, the burden of proof is not on Dele. It's on those that are prosecuting Dele that will have to prove. So that was not well said.
All right.
By the council. So there are many dimensions to this matter.
It's International Day for
Human Rights. Yes.
Which is... You assert must prove. All these matters will be worked out in court.
Yeah.
What Afe Babalola Chambers, in the statement they issued, is that, look, people should not take over the matter in the media.
Yeah.
It's before the court. And a street yelling will not make any difference.
Well, there's a court of public opinion. Babalola Chamber has no right to tell us about street yelling. Because the matter is already in the court of public opinion.
All right.
So we have a different right. Just like this person wrote against, what's it called, on Chidi Kalu's view. That's how everybody wrote. There's nothing called street yelling. We all comment on the matter. So he has no right to tell us that.
Even carpenters and vulcanizers,
everybody,
they are commenting. Even tuke drivers, they are commenting. Yes, but
this is
the law
joy.
Is what it
this is the great thing about democracy and what we are practicing here. And everyone's opinion must be respected as well. I mean, Ayo, I think you wanted to make a very important point.
Yes, I was going to say that it was pointed out tomorrow, which is the day. No, because I mentioned it.
Dr. Martin, what is happening?
Tomorrow is International Day for Human Rights.
And so when we're looking at human rights under the microscope now, we're looking at this case and how it infringes on his human right. It is quite ironic that he will be in court tomorrow, that is meant to be on the day of protest, International Day for Human Rights, just to say that. And when we talk about upholding the human rights of Nigerians, it's important to also put that in context. What I'll just say in summary is that a lot of people have talked about Chief Afe Babalola's right to defend himself. Any man, for that matter. Any man. But what we are calling for is that due process must be followed, and it mustn't seem as if a different set of laws apply to different people based on their status, whether they are elite
or whether they come for, whether they are poor. Everybody, the law should make everybody equal. So whether or not you're offended, it should be due process should have followed. That's what people are saying.
I love what this case has brought to the public space at this moment.